Are you looking to take your landscaping business to the next level? Welcome to the SiteRecon YouTube channel, where we talk to industry experts on sales, client relations, operations, and bring that content to you every single week. Enjoy.
This is a SiteRecon Sales Masterclass. We have with us Ken. Ken, thank you so much for joining today. Thanks, man. Apart from, of course, over the years, mentoring us, I mean, not the first ones you've mentored. You've been leading Envisor Consulting since 2011 as the principal there. Before that, and you're one of the veterans in this space, man. You ran your first company just like most of us sort of start with $1,000 in a pickup truck. Sold it in a few years to True Green Land Care. Then ran a commercial business, grew it to $17 million, one of the biggest companies, top 100 companies in America back then, which was then acquired by Valley Crest, where you worked leading the Southeast region as their head of the commercial maintenance sales team, after which you started Envisor Consulting with Ben back in 2011. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Thanks, Utkarsh. Glad to be here. Thank you.
So I want to just go through this table of content here, and then I'm going to hand this back to you.
Super.
Guys, we'll go through these 5 topics here. We'll talk about why you need to pay special attention to proposals, kick this off. Then we'll pull out a proposal from back in the days when Ken was using his unique sales process to get clients for Valley Crest. And it's amazing how that knowledge has over the years been lost to our industry. I was doing a research on, what kind of proposals are showing up today. And, this is a CDD document I pulled out that's uploaded in public. And a lot of these companies don't use the tactics that were employed back in the day. And so that proposal that Ken, you are going to sort of walk through today is, I think, a huge insight for us to how to differentiate ourselves. And like you say, like not lose the sale when you're so close to it. So we'll go through that proposal. Then we want to make sure you get good checklists on what to do and what not to do with your proposals. We'll go through a similar checklist on presentations. Presentations, we're going to keep more open-ended and for discussions for everyone here. And then we'll close off with the Q&A section. Some housekeeping items before we kick off. Of course, the recording is going to be available on our YouTube page. Use the Q&A button. Check out your Zoom toolbar right now, guys. Check out your Zoom toolbar. Look for the Q&A button there. Use that button to ask questions. We'll be picking up questions as we go through the session. And we'll have a poll later on. Would love to get your take on that as well. Ken, don't want to push this off any further. Over to you.
Good deal. Why don't you switch to the next slide there? Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well on this Friday afternoon or morning still. Kind of an old sales movie that we used to watch a long time ago. And it's always fun to say, put the coffee down, coffee's for closers. We're all out there looking for new business. We're trying to find our unique competitive advantage. Part of that is putting together a proper proposal presentation and then, having an effective presentation to our clients. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as we move through the presentation. Just to set the context around the proposal process, when we look at the sales process, and I think Ben in our previous masterclass call talked about strategic selling and strategic targeting. In our world, the sales process is kind of 7 phases. It starts with developing our target list. Then it's a matter of finding our prospect or connecting with the decision maker. The third stage is qualifying the opportunity and then developing a needs analysis with that client. So if we've spent adequate time in developing the right targets, connecting with the prospect, qualifying the opportunity, and developing a needs analysis or working with a client to identify unique problems or solutions that need to be addressed, then we can get to the place where we want to customize a proposal that addresses those client needs and those issues that were discovered throughout the qualifying process. So as Utkarsh mentioned earlier, typically if we've done our homework in the first 4 pieces of the sales process, our client already kind of knows who they want to be their partner in the future landscape contract. So our job in the proposal process is to make sure we don't blow that opportunity, or that we present the right solutions to the problems that we've identified. And obviously, once we've developed a proposal, we need to set up the right presentation format or forum so that we can address these ideas in person if possible. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So when we think about a winning proposal, we really think about it in 6 pieces. There's really the cover page, which tries to set the stage or create some excitement with the customer. There's a cover letter that follows up with some key components that we've identified in our needs analysis. There's the pricing page, which most people are most interested in. There's the body of the proposal that speaks to some of the issues that we've identified. There's professional site maps, which are becoming more and more important to be able to communicate our position as well as to create operational expertise. And then there's really the about section of a proposal. So 6 main pieces, and we'll go through those and talk about them in a little more detail.
Ken, do you want to go through the deck first and do the proposal later, or should I pull out your old Balik list proposal, and how would you like to do it?
Oh, we can go through the deck first if you like.
Okay. All right. Let's do that.
So as a matter of fact, let's do the other one.
Okay.
Food car. So let's start with the proposal.
All right.
So what we're trying to do in the proposal is just create, a summary of who the client is. Typically, we would create some sort of a logoed picture that shows the property and maybe some signage for the property that customizes the presentation to the customer. Typically, that's on the cover page. The real key to setting the stage for the proposal is in our cover letter. And in the cover letter, what we're trying to do is to speak to our prospect personally. Number one, thanking them for the opportunity to present a proposal for the property, and then addressing immediately the needs that were identified through our needs analysis with the customer. We see a lot of folks make mistakes in this part of the proposal where it's really common to see companies talking about themselves first rather than talking about the customer. So we want to get right to the point. For this particular case, Barbara, thanks for the opportunity to bid. While we were talking to you, you identified 3 main areas on your property that you want to see some improvements in the future. Those 3 areas were keeping the sign area perfect, saving money with converting annual beds to perennials, and being proactive in managing the details of the property because they've been spending too much time managing the landscaper. So through our needs analysis, we identified 3 main areas that we want to address further along in this proposal and position ourselves as the best provider to be able to solve your landscape issues.
Can you, before we move on, can you elaborate a bit on how you used to go about doing needs analysis? We've had others speak about it, but just for context on today's call, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think it's partly and most important when you're developing your prospect is building a relationship to where they're comfortable being honest with you about what's going on their properties. And part of the qualifying process really is in getting your client to open up to you. If they're truly interested in improving their landscape partnership, if they're truly interested in making a change, they're going to tell you what their pain points are in their current relationships. Our needs analysis is really to understand what's your level of satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. If 10 is totally satisfied and they're an 8, what is the difference that would make an 8 turn into a 10 in satisfaction? That gap typically is based around some pain points or some needs that we can fill that the current contractor may not be able to fill. In this particular case, those needs were somewhat service-based and horticulturally based, somewhat economically as well. A lot of times the need is more relationship-based. It's more in the realm of effective communication or a proactive service. So most of the time we're not getting fired and our prospects are not making a change because the grass isn't getting mowed. They're making a change because they're not feeling the partnership vibe that they need to feel. They're not getting the expert advice that they desire in a landscape service provider, they're not getting communicated properly or effectively, or they feel like they're chasing us around too much. So throughout the qualification and needs analysis, we're trying to find that gap between total satisfaction and where they are. And then our job is to fill that gap with good solutions to those problems.
Got you. And these three pieces here, were these big enough reasons for our to like switch or like go for a company like yours?
In this case, they were. The real underlying question or issue was that they weren't satisfied with the answers they were getting from their current provider.
See.
These alone, yeah, that's probably the more important one. They weren't being proactive in managing the details. I'm not so sure that the previous contractor couldn't have given them solutions around the signage or solutions around converting annuals to perennials, but they had already lost a certain amount of credibility because of their proactivity and their communication. So they were already ready to make a change. These were just, I think, secondary opportunities to add value.
Got you. Guys, that's if you got questions, I'll keep asking mine, but if you guys got yours, please drop them in the Q&A in the chat section here, and we'll take them up. Thanks, Ken, for being patient with these, and I'll keep. Should I scroll to the next section?
Yeah, just one more point on the cover
Sure.
letter. I mean, the real purpose here is to show interest, to demonstrate that you listened throughout the qualification and needs analysis process. And we're here to tell you how we're going to solve your problems in the following phases of this proposal.
Kind of like a summary.
Yeah. So then we step into, the detail around how we're going to solve these three immediate problems. Again, we reiterated that we heard you, Barbara, we heard your concerns. We've identified those, and now we're going to tell you how we suggest solutions to those problems. In this particular case, the first one was the landscape did not maximize the signage. So we were able to offer a couple of different solutions to limbing up trees around the signage, and also what we would call putting some lipstick on the signage by making it pop and sizzle with some color. Seems a little contradictory that on one page we're minimizing annual color and changing it to long-term perennial color, but there are some instances where annuals are the best way to create interest. So this would be one area that we would not change to perennials over the long term. They would always stay a seasonal color just because of the impact that it brings. Other areas of the property, we can reduce the year-over-year annual seasonal color expenses by converting those annual beds into long-term perennials, which obviously come back year over year. They still create a certain amount of color and interest, but we've saved the customer some money by not having to replace those beds every single year. And we've used some digital imaging to try to illustrate the value in that.
These are photos from the property, right? That you would have taken as you were going through the process.
Yes, absolutely. And obviously today, the digital imaging and tools for creating what if scenarios are much better than they were back then. And there's certainly new graphics in proposals. There's programs like Proposify that can take your graphics and even spruce them up even more. But this is it's a little bit of an older presentation. The main thing on any of these proposals is they need to look good. They need to look professional. But more importantly, they need to address specifically the issues that the client is concerned about. You got to prove your case, and you got to be attentive to the needs of the property and the client. And the last piece of those needs analysis was really being proactive. In this particular case, the customer felt like they were constantly, spending just too much time chasing down answers or solutions, or even sometimes just wondering if we got the work done that they had requested. It's one of the biggest things that we've found over time as contractors and landscape partners, that the property managers are very busy these days. They have so many things to manage, and what they're really interested in is a partner, a landscape service provider that makes their job easier. They've got many, many things to manage, many responsibilities to juggle on a day-to-day basis. We want to make sure that landscaping is not one of those that they have to spend a lot of extra time on. So those were the three main needs that we wanted to address first off the bat, in this proposal. And then we would kind of move into our approach to making sure that there's a noticeable impact on the property in the first 30 days. it's just something that we've always believed in. If we can make visible change in the first 30 days on a property, that we're going to get off to the right foot, kind of a start clean model, first impressions, lasting impressions. So in this particular case, we've got a few key points that within the first 30 days, we're going to address. Communication. It's important at this level of a relationship to make sure that we're connecting the account manager with the customer, that we're transferring all of our sales information into a production plan. We're going to address some turf issues that we noticed that we felt like we could make immediate impacts in terms of color and weed control. We talked about pruning up some trees to open up the signs and, create a more impact in the signage areas. And then we were focusing on some shrubs and beds and some enhancement ideas that were outlined in the previous pages. So in the first 30 days, here's what you can expect from us as your landscape service provider. If we can get off on the right foot, the next 30 days and the 60, 90 after that just get easier and easier.
Ken, how much of this were you like customizing client by client? Was this a standard write-up, this specific page? I mean, I saw on the last page, it was very specific to Crown Point. But this one, was it specific? Is there like an order here? Because communication comes first, then signage comes next. There are some very interesting arrangements of priorities that you can do here.
Yeah, some of the items that were listed in the previous pages would require budgeting and approvals and things like that. So they're probably not going to be achieved in the first 30 days. So these are really operational maintenance issues that can be addressed, fairly quickly with our normal crew operations. Obviously, the last one down there is presenting enhancement ideas. So that's easy to address in the first 30 days. By the end of 30 days, they should have some good enhancement ideas in front of them that address the needs that they've expressed.
So you were still working off a template, but you were customizing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are no-brainers. If the property that we're taking over is, positioned as an 8 out of 10 from a horticultural maintenance level, and we can go in and limb up a few trees and green up the turf and remove some weeds and create an impact to bring that 8 up to a 9 just through our maintenance contract, then it just makes sense to go ahead and knock that out and invest the time in the first 30 days, because again, you're going to make a noticeable improvement and create an incredible first impression. So maybe it's a little bit generic, but in this particular case, it was also applicable to Crown Point. Obviously with the advent new mapping tools in the industry, SiteRecon, we're able to add credibility to our proposal by showing the work and the diligence that we put in developing our proposal and our bid. So it's always good to be able to show comprehensive property maps with key elements designated. In this case, there's the layers of trees and turf and beds that can be illustrated. And it really just shows the client that we've done our hard work and due diligence to lay out the best possible plan, and that our pricing should be aligned with the scope of work and the size of the property. Further down, we're able to pin the actual locations of enhancement ideas. The great thing about SiteRecon as a tool, being able to walk the property, create a GPS located pin, take pictures. It's very easy for a property manager to get it. In the old days, we used to use PowerPoint. It took a lot longer to go in and create numbers on maps and then import our pictures in, and the efficiency and communication ease of these maps just creates, again, a higher level of understanding with our prospect at the proposal stage. And just scrolling down, you can continue to see the detail behind those pins that are created through mapping like SiteRecon. Irrigation mapping is another way to, again, prove that we've got a handle on the property. If we've done the hard work to go through and pin our controllers and our main cutoffs and our valves and zones, it takes a little more time, and this might be a hard thing to put together for the proposal, but once we get the job, it's also a great tool to use for operations. Typically in our proposal, we're going to have some sort of a horticultural calendar that illustrates timing and schedules of the different tasks that are part of our scope of work. We certainly recommend creating a minimum scope of work, that a minimum standard scope of work that we're utilizing in our proposals to build a standard estimate. It's important not to layer in too many extras in the proposal phase, because you're going to price yourself out of the market. If the customer wants to dig in further to the scope of work, we can always do that as we talk about pricing. Again, as we're scrolling through the proposal, we're down to the pricing page. We want our pricing page to be as simple as possible. Most of us know that the more detail in the pricing, the more subjective the review becomes. And, from our point, we want to start with bulk pricing. And then if we need to dig into detail, we can dig into detail. I know there are some parts of the market across the country where customers in the market are used to seeing number of mows and the cost of mowing and the cost of the weed programs and the cost of everything outlined out. And I guess if you got to do it, you got to do it. But our approach is to keep it simple at first, so that we have something to talk about, and then we can always dig in if we need to dig in. Thoughts, Utkarsh?
Well, there's a question here. It's very interesting. Justin is asking, if prospective clients don't have much information to offer about their wants or needs regarding their landscaping upon your initial visit, how do you solicit some out of them?
Could you repeat that?
He's basically asking if the prospects don't have much information to offer about what their needs are. How do you go about doing a needs assessment?
Well, that's interesting. So that goes back to qualifying. If we're in the game to present a proposal to a client and they can't tell us why they would want to make a change, then the question goes back to, are you really going to make a change? Is this an exercise in pricing just to see, if your current provider is in line or not? But a customer who truly wants, or a prospect who truly wants to improve their relationship and their landscape results, are going to be honest in one way or another that there's an issue. Because if there's no issue other than price, then I'm not sure we're the right contractor for you. And these days, as most everybody knows, it's very hard to beat the price of the incumbent, just because everything's gone up. So we're looking to sell value. So if you'll help me help you, tell me where the weaknesses are in the current relationship, or tell me where the pain points are, in the current partnership, and let me try to figure out a way to help you solve those problems.
How do you tell them that you can hire, you can offer a higher level of service? If they don't know they can get a higher level of service, they don't know what they're missing out on.
Well, and that's a great point. How does service defined? At the end of the day, if we're trying to position ourselves as a better provider or add value, and they won't be honest with you about what they're not getting, then you got to pry. I mean, it goes back to asking the questions that I was mentioning before. Your satisfaction level is either a 1 or a 10, 10 being great and 1 being nothing. Somewhere in the middle, if you tell me it's not 10, then let me try to dig in a little bit deeper and figure out what that is. Is it truly a horticultural issue, or is it a service issue in terms of communication? Is it an expert level issue? One of the biggest reasons that commercial landscape maintenance clients make a change in service providers is because of the relationship they have with the account manager. Sometimes there's just been too much change in that position. They're on their 3rd account manager. The product is not that bad on the property. You might drive up and say, this place looks really good. Well, that's not the way that the customer defined quality. They define quality with stability in relationship. And if you can dig deep and find out that they're on their 3rd account manager in 6 months, then your position of strength is to offer stability in your future account management position. Then you want to sell the tenure of your account management team. So it's digging in deep and realizing that most of the time it's not really about green grass and pretty flowers. It's about relationships. How you put that into a proposal is a whole nother story. And I think we'll do that later in introducing our team to the client. A lot of decision makers go straight to the pricing page, and if that's the case, then we probably didn't do a really good job on a needs analysis to begin with.
Makes sense. I mean, if you're maybe the property manager has not as closely seen the property as you might, if let's say you just do a walk around the property before you go and see him, might you might be able to point out something that brings a satisfaction score from 10 to 9 or 8.5. And I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just like making sure you check all those boxes. And even after that, if it's still a 10, then your qualification is probably at an end and you move to the next property.
Yeah, it's kind of a sensitive topic as well, as you don't want to go in and incriminate the property manager for having bad service or a bad product. So it's a sensitive balance, and pointing out that there are opportunities for improvement, but don't worry, you're doing your job. It's not your fault. So
We, in the world of sales, we call it giving them a stroke, like making them feel okay, like, so it's always
yeah,
great.
exactly. Well, again,
All
we're
right.
trying to sum up everything we've learned in a proposal that's not too detailed and it's not too minimalistic. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I've seen over the years is there's really a difference between introducing our company and creating a proposal. And I've seen a lot of proposals that are 50 pages long and that tells everything about the history of the company and what we do best and what our geographic footprint is. And those are all valid points that I think add credibility to who you are. I just don't believe they go in the proposal package. Obviously, if you're doing an RFP for a large CDD or municipal opportunity and they ask you to combine all that together, then I want to put all that extra fluff about me on the bottom of this presentation at the very end. And if you want to dig into it, you can dig into it. But more importantly, I would suggest that we introduce our company and present our history and our unique selling points in a separate document somewhere earlier in the sales process, so that when we get to the proposal table, we're specifically talking about your property and this opportunity, and we're dealing with this solution versus all this other what about me kind of stuff. So not knocking the value of the all about us, but it's just putting in the right context. The other thing we don't see in a proposal typically is the scope of work outlined in detail. I mean, there's a difference between the introduction package, the proposal, and the contract. So the contract is much more detailed, has a lot of indemnifications, has our scope of work, has our pricing outlined out, and that's going to come, and we should have that in hand. But this is our proposal. This is how we position ourselves in the best light against our competitions using the knowledge that we've gained through the sales process up to this point.
So all the proposals I surveyed in that CDD report, they were exactly doing those mistakes, right? They were not doing needs analysis. There was no needs analysis piece on it. They were mostly, it was a brochure, like a big brochure on who we are, like a 40-page. And then there's scope of work and then there's contract. And that was the submission that these guys at the CDD board meeting were opening and reading. And I mean, so your proposal is about to end. Like it's only a few pages more from this point, and that's all they want to know at that point, right?
Yeah, we want to keep it simple. Obviously, we've added a team dynamic down below the pricing page because we feel like one of the strengths in this particular case was the tenure of our team. And we wanted to introduce personally the folks that would be serving this client. This is not the company bio. This is not the org chart of the corporate team. These are the people that'll be on site, on property locally, helping to deliver the services that we're promising in this proposal. So we feel like it added a personal touch to the proposal. And finally, the last page of the proposal is really just offering a few clear references of typical work that is similar to the property that we're proposing. And part of this is really part of the proposal process is how close are you to the decision maker? If the person you're talking to has got the full empowerment to make the final decision, there's a certain amount of this that's not needed. If this has to go up to a regional manager in a different state or a different city, it might be more important to add more information that gives us credibility. I still don't think we got to give them our whole introductory package. That could have been given at a different time, but having some references that are clearly visible nearby, makes a difference.
Makes sense. Ken, I want to ask a question that came up in the Q&A here, asked by Mike from Imageworks Landscaping. Hey, Mike, shout out to you. He's asking, do you feel it's a good idea to offer multi-level pricing, A, B, or C level pricing packages?
No, I don't. And I think it's important to realize that, well, most of the people we deal with, most of the property management firms don't have a scope of work that they're asking everybody to bid. So it's starting out apples to oranges to begin with. And I think it's important to develop a standard minimum scope of work that we're going to price for all of our customers in the different market verticals, knowing that everybody's pricing their own model out there. But my standard minimum scope needs to be able to provide the level of visual quality and service that our customer expects. So there is a standard minimum scope that I would never go below, but I want to be very careful not to offer multiple levels above that or to hide additional scope items or overproduce a scope for an opportunity to get in the door. So I hear what you're saying, Mike. I'm just not sure that the customer is ready for multiple levels. If we can connect with that customer, if we get to the point where we're negotiating past this proposal stage, then maybe we could bring up, the next level of what I might do in addition to our standard minimum scope. But our standard minimum scope should guarantee excellent curb appeal, professional service, expert advice, effective communication. So beyond that, I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of, bronze, silver, and gold in the commercial world, maybe in the residential.
Mike, I allowed you to unmute yourself and talk. If you want to play the devil's advocate here and challenge Ken, go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now that I know it's Mike McCarron, I'm not really sure I want to talk. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. No, we're just seeing a lot of price, especially on a couple items. They want to see bare minimum, slight enhancement, and then what would be if they decided to go full color? Are we doing 2 rotations instead of 3? Could we do a little less on the turf and then next year do more on the turf? We're just seeing a lot of changes in property managers asking for a couple different price points dependent upon what their occupancy is in some of their apartment buildings and what the occupancy is in some of their strip malls. As they pull back a little bit in occupancy, they're trying to pull back in service. They're basically asking us, if we're at 60% occupancy, what can we do? If we're at 80% occupancy, what can we do? If our shopping center is full and our condos are totally full, our apartments are totally full, can you give us over the top service? They're trying to ask us to price contracts according to their occupancy levels and cash flow. So that's really that's kind of like the way I meant to say A, B, and C packaging on that, but it's really based upon their occupancy cash flow.
Yeah, it makes sense on like the overall scope of work. Like the base management is really where the standard minimum scope comes in. You might be able to say, look, we can cut 3 mowings out in the year on the bookends of the season and save you a little bit of money if you're really hurting. But typically, if your occupancy is down, you're going to still want green grass and weeded beds and pruned shrubs. So that goes into your additional optional services of flowers and mulch. They may want to eliminate a round of mulch, or they may want to add 2 rounds of mulch if they're doing really well, or create some additional seasonal color beds if they're doing well.
Yeah.
So I think the base management contract is fairly consistent. So your levels of additional service probably come into your optional services.
Yeah, no, I appreciate doing the seminar. I appreciate you stepping online. Yeah, it's kind of weird. We've just seen a little bit of it this year. Just wondered what your thought was on it. It's getting a little bit more, the account manager, the property managers are feeling like, I think they're taking a lot of pressure and asking to get a couple different price points from the ownership, that they're just pushing it down onto all the contractors, not just on the landscape side, window washer, parking lot cleaning, all of that. People are getting asked to come up with some creative ways to work around, financial holdbacks. That's all.
I get it, especially the Class A office corporate market is going to be under extreme pressure from occupancy going forward. So I think what you're talking about, if we're going to drop below our standard minimum scope, that's going to be a value engineering question. How can we value engineer this scope of work below our standard? It's easy to go ahead and cut out your mulches and your flowers and some of your extra enhancements, but if you want to start cutting out our standard minimum base maintenance, let's talk value engineering and the impact it's going to have on your overall curb appeal. And just be creative. We are the experts, and that's what you're looking for, is expert advice.
Right. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yep.
And there's a question, anonymous. Having a proposal that does not include the scope of work is new to me. How does that process flow? Does the proposal and scope of work get included in the same submission, just different files? Or you would send them at different points of time and then later together?
Well, I think it goes back to what is everybody else presenting. I'm not trying to hide anything, but if we scroll back up to our schedule of services, we're basically saying that we're going to do all these things. We're going to cut your grass. We're going to take care of your shrubs and your beds. We're going to do some basic small tree work. There's some miscellaneous items in here. There's irrigation, startup shutdown, and winterization and wet checks. And then there's pricing that says this is going to cost you, this is your base maintenance, going to cost you a certain fee. And then if you want flowers and mulch, it's on top of this. I'm not saying hide anything. It's just a matter of incriminating yourself and over processing your scope. So I would start out with less information with the assumption that we're going to do everything you need on this property. At some point, you are going to have to identify your scope fully and what it means to mow and how often, and what the weed control looks like, and the fact that you're going to have a fertilization and turf program. So I just don't think it's here. It just muddies the water around the real message, which is that we listen to you, we understand your pain points and your needs, we're addressing them here. The base maintenance, you expect that, we deliver that. But above and beyond that, this is how we're going to make your life easier. Separate document. It's in the contract.
Right. So it's that texty thing that's paragraphs after paragraphs. It's going through pruning, mowing, like it's just a bunch of definitions one after the other. That's what you're referring to, or our question is basically referring to that document, right?
Yes, I think it's an addendum that comes later in the process.
Got you. There's a question from Lauren. Hey, Lauren, good to see you here. Not including the contract and company details makes sense, but I worry that if I'm working with a property manager that needs to bring my packet to additional stakeholders, that they won't have enough from me.
Well, in that case, I wouldn't get hung up on not including the scope. If you want to think about a standard approach, this would be my standard approach. If you find yourself in a situation where you believe that adding the scope of work is going to position you better in the negotiation, then by all means position that as an addendum to your proposal or as an add-on. It's just part of the savviness of the sales process. First thing, keep it simple, address the client's needs, show them that you're listening, provide some solutions, introduce them to your personalized team, add a couple of references, and then read the room. Are they buying it or not buying it? If you need more information, we can go as deep as you want. Thanks, Lauren.
Lauren, I permitted you to talk just in case you have a follow-up question.
Yeah, first, can you hear me?
Afraid so.
Afraid so. Hey guys, one, I just want to thank you. This is perfect timing for me. The last two presentations that you guys have put together is just kind of aligned with things that we're working on in the company. So I really appreciate the partnership between your two companies and the content you're putting out. Ken, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. And what I'm thinking based on what you're saying is just taking the things that might be advantages for us, not full scope, but there's some contract details that I believe are a bit of an advantage for us. I think I'm going to strip down our contract, just take a couple pieces so that in the event that I'm dealing with an intermediary or a property manager, community manager that needs to go to another group of stakeholders for the final decision, that I at least capture some of the high level stuff. But I'm, to your point, and I love this because I've been doing it wrong, I'm going to leave out all the contract stuff. I'm not going to bore them with pages and pages of legal jargon. But if you're of the agreement here, I think I'm going to just highlights some of the advantages that I believe we have included in our contract. That might be what we do on rain days or what we do with vacation days out of the year. Thoughts?
If you've got some unique selling points that need to be included as part of your scope, absolutely. I know you guys have a lot of irrigation, water management type stuff that may be worth noting. And then maybe some creative things like you're mentioning, that why wouldn't you put them in if it's going to add some value? I agree.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lauren.
Utkarsh, were you interested in adding any detail to your mapping components?
Yes.
That
Very quickly, because we are kind of coming to the 50-minute mark here. Guys, this is SiteRecon, very easy to use. Order these maps that you can use to create these estimates, the pricing you need here. Once you have this on your desktop app, you can have it on site. You can go in there, you can pin these notes while you're walking around the property, take pictures and create reports. And yeah, once you've got all your data compiled here, it's very easy to sort of, sort it in different views, use it for different use cases. You win the job, great for handovers, great for getting your folks aligned. One of the things we saw in all of these proposals that we were looking at earlier, right? Not a lot of them have maps. And what Ken was talking about, making your pitch customized and specific to the property that you're going after is absolutely essential. And this is a big piece of it. Typically, you would end up getting from the property manager a PDF, handwritten overlay of some old Google Earth snapshot that they have. And, I find that sort of sitting in almost every proposal that I was going through for this community. But I mean, imagine you could do something like this for them. At least you added a lot of value to how they think about their property, right? And that's part of standing out. You tell them what you know about their property, and it's in a different like league altogether. Then they can start to trust you that you have your thumb on the pulse of the property, and you actually mean well. You did that homework, and all this detail actually goes into proof that you did do your homework. Not to say that this is not just adding to like the great looks of your proposal. I mean, I think you can have very simple proposal design here. Ken and I, we were going back and forth on, should we talk about like proposal tools, right? We could be talking about Proposify, we could be talking about all these different tools out there. But then Ken brought this story up. His daughter is a property manager, and she says she would never, never select a contractor based on how pretty that proposal is. And the essential items in skeletal form that add value to that process, a map is like a fundamental piece of it.
That's a good point. It's an interactive map, which obviously is important at this stage of the prospecting, but it's even more important once we win the work and we're able to do our property inspections and quality audits. And again, pinning your location on a property is, to me, just cool as heck. And I don't know if anybody else is doing that yet. So.
And then some of our customers they actually open this up in their presentations. So imagine this actually opening up on a big screen, and you're walking them through like how you would go about servicing the site, zooming in, zooming out, giving them an actual experience of, I mean, how else could you potentially do it in a sales process, right? The map is the only tool to do it. And the more detailed and visual it gets, it just makes the whole thing more real for them to imagine.
Well, that segues into the actual presentation. We've talked
Finally.
about the proposal. Yeah. So then the key obviously is, can we get in front of our decision-making team in person to present our ideas and our proposal and our unique approach to winning their work? Once we understand that we have an opportunity to present in person, it's important to understand how many people are going to be in that presentation, how we're going to present. Is it going to be print? Obviously, if we can present a digital proposal on a screen in their office or in our office, and be able to dig into some of our mapping tools that just, again, add credibility. As most of us know, the bigger and the more complicated the job, the more risk there is to make a change with the decision maker. I don't know of any other better way than to be able to show them that we've already built a plan of attack on the property, that we can show them how we're going to address the most unique challenges, whether it be lagoons or heavily treated areas or unsafe areas, or just being able to show them that we've already figured out our property attack plan. We can do that if we're in front of them and we're able to drill into our maps on their screen. If we're team selling, we want to make sure that we don't have, too many of us and not enough of them. We don't want to gang up on anybody. And if we're going to take multiple people into a presentation, we need to understand what is our presentation, who's going to present which piece of it, and make sure that we've got our parts all rehearsed so we're not talking over each other or contradicting each other. Obviously, we want to look people in the eye, shake hands with everybody in attendance. Sometimes we're talking to a whole board of people and there's very quiet folks in that room. It's still important to make them realize that they're important and that we're glad they're there, and try to draw some information out of them. At the end of the day, we want to thank them, but we want to ask for their business. That's what we're there for. We think we're the best solution to your landscape problems. We've done our homework. You can see from our presentation that it's well thought out. We've showed you that we've gone beyond just coming up with a proposal. We know how to produce this work. We'd really like your business. Could we get a yes today? Don't leave without asking for the sale. So that's kind of our approach to getting in front of the decision makers. If we can't get in front of them in person, obviously a virtual call would be the next best solution. Beyond that, obviously dropping off proposals is not a great thing. I know there are some, closed bids situations where we have to drop proposals off and there's not a lot of interaction. Obviously the best approach is to be in front of the decision maker and get a chance to look them in the eye and tell them how we're going to win their business. That's right.
I love it. Guys, any follow-up questions on the checklist? I mean, a lot could be going on in your presentation. If you have a presentation coming up in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you want to ask a specific question, go for it. Drop your question in here. I'll unmute you, ask, and make the best of the time we have right now. In the meantime, I wanna launch a poll here, and we wanna know, would you be interested in learning more about how to create winning proposals one-on-one with us? Y'all, if you tell us yes, we'll reach out with Ken, and we can basically get into the details of how you could sort of update the way you set up your proposals going into 2024. Ken, there was a question that was coming up, and I know Aman went and answered the first time it got asked. Folks asked for this Valley Crest proposal that we were going through, and they asked, can we get it after the webinar? I mean, I don't want to say it for you, so I will let you say yes or no to that, or you want to sort of take that up in a more intimate one-on-one setting that people are answering right now. Your call.
Yeah, let me think. Let's talk about that, Ukars. Maybe get anybody that's interested, and then we'll figure out if that's the right thing to do.
Okay.
We used an old proposal because they are not around anymore, so we thought that would be somewhat safe.
Got you. That's fair.
Cool. Well, listen, I just wanted to end with an introduction to Envisor's online landscape academy, and just let everybody know that if you're interested in learning more about account management, commercial maintenance, business development, which covers strategic selling, the sales process, and proposal creation, this would be a great place to go online. These are certificate courses that just give you a little more in-depth video learning. You can learn at your own speed. We also introduce our green dot operating process, which is good for businesses around the topic of organizational development. So little pitch there for Envisor Landscape Academy. Just scan the QR code and see if you might be interested. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ken. This was awesome. We're gonna love to have you back here sometime if you could make the time for us. And
happy to do it.
Thanks. I mean, I waited. I wanted to say yes, so I just stop and wait for you to say yes. Thanks. Really appreciate that, Ken. Everybody who was here, appreciate you all. I mean, we all come together here to learn. Your participation means a lot to us. We work a lot to put this together for you. Go check out our YouTube page. When the video comes out, we'll share out the links. And the guys who selected yes to our poll question will be hearing from us in a couple of days. Thank you so much, all. We'll see you in the next.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay. Have a good weekend.
You too, Ken. Thank you, everybody.
If you like what you see here, don't forget to click on the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. We post videos every single week.